Hello and welcome to this new video, and in this video we are going to talk about resources and development from class 10th geography book. So this is the part 1 and we are going to divide our chapters in 2 or 3 parts and we are going to study them one by one. Okay. So if you like the video do subscribe to the channel और हम इस वीडियो को bilingual रखेंगे so that जिनको हिंदी समझ में आती है वो भी समझ सके और जिनको इंग्लिश आती है मतलब इंग्लिश में समझना चाहते हैं वो भी समझ सके, right? So let's start the video, and this is one initial video, right? Abhi I am not showing my face on the video, but I'll just find out a way to, display my face on the screen as well. So don't worry about it. This is just an initial video. Do watch it, enjoy it, and if you feel like subscribing to the channel, do it, right? But I would request you to subscribe the channel also. It will help me out. Chalo. So let's understand the basic meaning of the resources and what is a resource. We are going to talk about it, but first of all we are going to understand that what is the relation between resources and the development. Okay, resources और development के बीच में क्या रिश्ता है, let's understand it. So see, on your map you can see there is a small island nation over here which is called as Japan, right? If I study the geography of Japan, I'll find out that on all the four sides it is surrounded by ocean, right? And in terms of agriculture also, it has limited agriculture. Again, it has limited industries, but technologically it is very advanced. So if I see that resources are very limited, but if the limited resources are being utilized in a better way, they are leading to what? They are leading to the development, right? Despite the fact that they are very limited in number, they are leading to the development of the country. Okay. So from this, I can figure out that even if the resources are less, and if I utilize them judiciously, I will be able to make my country progress. Right. So you can see these images over here. Here it is the scenario of world. यहाँ पर जापान का सिनेरियो है, टेढ़ा फोन बना रहे हैं, राउंड फोन बना रहे हैं एंड ट्रांसपेरेंट वॉच भी बना रहे हैं, पता नहीं क्या क्या बना रहे हैं तो. And on the other hand, if I compare the other relation between resources and development with the example of India, let's understand it. Okay, first read this. So you can read that Bihar is home to every 12th IAS officer. So IAS officers are quite intelligent, right? And we hope that they are going to contribute to society, and they do also. But 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 the thing is, good human resource doesn't always mean that the region is going to be developed, right? ऐसे तो जब 12 में से हर एक आईएएस बिहार से आ रहा है तो इसका मतलब तो यही है कि वहाँ के लोग तो बहुत होशियार है, बट इज दैट रीजन बीइंग डेवलप्ड? This is a question mark, right? So if I show you this image, that there is the highest rate of poverty in Bihar, 51.9%. And you can see these images also, like how these kids are studying. And although ये भी शिखर पर हैं, but ये कोई दूसरे शिखर पर हैं. So resources, if utilized properly, will always lead to development, even if the resources are less. This is something which I can figure out from these two slides. So, for utilizing any resource which is available on this planet, I need one important resource, and that is called as human resource, right? So human resource is one such resource which I need to put each and every other resource at use. That means कि अगर मान लो कि मेरे पास एक resource है, suppose I have a resource called as solar energy, right? Suppose I have solar energy as a natural resource or a renewable resource, but अगर मेरे पास human beings ही नहीं है उस सोर्स को यूटिलाइज रिसोर्स को यूटिलाइज करने के लिए, so technically my solar energy which I am getting from sun is wasted, right? So resources, if put to use judicially and with mind, only then they lead to development. Otherwise, they don't. And doesn't matter even if your resources are limited, as we have seen in case of Japan, right? Or your resources are in abundance, like we have seen in the case of Bihar. If you will utilize them properly, then obviously you are going to progress. So this is something which we have seen. Now we are going to understand like what is a resource actually. So this is the basic definition written in your book. One mark question can be asked. Define the term resource, right? और दे कैन आस्क यू इन 3 मार्कर ऑल्सो व्हाट इज अ रिसोर्स, और उसके आगे कुछ और क्वेश्चन अटैच कर देंगे लाइक व्हाट इज अ रिसोर्स, एक्सप्लेन एनी टू रिन्यूएबल रिसोर्सेज और समथिंग लाइक दैट। ठीक, वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस द क्वेश्चंस आल्सो, बट फॉर नाउ जस्ट अंडरस्टैंड कि व्हाट इज अ रिसोर्स। ओके, सो रिसोर्स है क्या, लेट्स रीड इट वन बाय वन। Everything available in our environment which can be used to satisfy our needs। ठीक, एक तो पहला क्राइटेरिया, which can be used to satisfy our needs, right? ये first criteria. Second, it should be technologically accessible, okay, then economically feasible, and then culturally acceptable। ठीक, अब technologically accessible का तो मतलब हमें पता लग गया कि उसको यूज करने की टेक्नोलॉजी हमारे पास होनी चाहिए। फॉर एग्जाम्पल देयर आर सर्टेन थिंग्स जो एग्जिस्ट तो करती हैं बट उनको यूज करने की टेक्नोलॉजी हमारे पास अभी नहीं है। जैसे सपोज सी वाटर, राइट? अब सी वाटर एग्जिस्ट तो करता है एंड वाटर इज इन अबंडेंस इन अर्थ, राइट? अब ये 3.4 3/4 ऑफ अर्थ इज कवर्ड विद वाटर, तो बहुत सारा पानी है। बट द थिंग इज कि टेक्नोलॉजिकली हम उसको एक्सेस नहीं कर सकते कि हम उसको प्योरीफाई कर लें और घरों तक पहुंचा दें। सो हमारे पास तो पानी ही पानी है, बट टेक्निकली इट इज़ अ वेरी कॉस्टली प्रोसेस, और वो टेक्नोलॉजी अभी तक हर कंट्री को एक्सेसिबल नहीं हो पाई है, अदरवाइज हमारा टास्क बहुत इजी हो जाता, राइट? इकोनॉमिकली फीजिबल भी होना चाहिए, इतना एक्सपेंसिव भी नहीं होना चाहिए कि आम आदमी उसको अफोर्ड ही नहीं कर पा रहा है, राइट? और लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट कि कल्चरली एक्सेप्टेबल होना चाहिए। अब कल्चरली एक्सेप्टेबल का मतलब क्या है, इसको समझ लेते हैं एक बार, क्योंकि बाकी इकोनॉमी वाला भी समझ आ जाएगा और टेक्नोलॉजिकली एक्सेसिबल वाला पॉइंट भी समझ में आ जाएगा, बट कल्चरली एक्सेप्टेबल का मतलब क्या है ये समझते हैं। देखो, ये जो बना हुआ है स्क्रीन पर, मसाला बॉक्स नहीं है, संजीव कपूर इज सिंह। सो व्हाट इज इट एग्जैक्टली, दिस इज अ सोलर कुकर, राइट? सोलर कुकर। अब नाउ सोलर कुकर एग्जिस्ट, राइट? सोलर कुकर एग्जिस्ट तो करता है, बट इज इट कल्चरली एक्सेप्टेबल, लाइक आर यू यूजिंग इट इन योर होम्स ऑन द रेगुलर बेसिस? यू कैनॉट डू दैट, राइट? सो कल्चरली एक्सेप्टेबल नहीं है। कल्चरली क्या एक्सेप्टेबल है, वही प्रेशर कुकर जो हम डे टू डे लाइफ में यूज करते आ रहे हैं, राइट? एंड व्हाई हैव आई यूज्ड जेनिफर लोपेज, ऐसे ही फालतू में लगा दिया, मन कर रहा था। सो लेट्स मूव अहेड एंड स्टडी further like what is a resource, and classification also we are going to see। Okay, so I hope what is a resource is clear to everyone। Firstly, that it should satisfy our needs and should be technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable also, it can be termed as a resource। So Jennifer Lopez is culturally acceptable, especially to Indians। Chalo, now moving ahead to the classification of resources। So before we move ahead, just to remind you of the same thing which I had told you earlier, that resources are the functions of human activities, right? And human beings themselves are the essential components of resources, right? That's why we call human beings as what? Human resource बोलते हैं ना human beings को। And they are the ones who transform every resource which is available on this planet, say it be it a natural resource or a man-made resource, human resource ही उसको यूज में लेता है। I mean उसको एक अच्छा रिसोर्स बना पाता है। सपोज आई हैव से फॉसिल फ्यूल्स, राइट? अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ फॉसिल फ्यूल्स और पेट्रोलियम, राइट? अब फॉसिल फ्यूल तो है मेरे पास, बट सपोज इसको यूटिलाइज करने के लिए ह्यूमन रिसोर्स ही नहीं है मेरे पास, ह्यूमन बींग्स ही नहीं है, तो टेक्निकली मेरा फॉसिल रिसोर्स जो है, फॉसिल फ्यूल जो है, वो भी तो वेस्ट हो जाएगा। सो टू एक्सेस एवरी रिसोर्स आई नीड व्हाट, आई नीड अ ह्यूमन रिसोर्स, राइट? चलो, now let's talk about the types of resources। So what are the types of resources? So we classify them on different types। So there are 4 types on which we classify them: on the basis of origin, on basis of exhaustibility, on basis of ownership, on basis of status of development। अब ये इतनी सारी ये क्या कहानी लिखी हुई है, we are going to understand it one by one, don't worry, in a very easier way, right? So I know you are feeling like वसूली भाई right now, समझ कुछ नहीं आया और सुन के अच्छा लग रहा है कि हम पढ़ेंगे इसको। तो हम शांति से पढ़ने की कोशिश करेंगे कि हमें एक एक करके चीजें समझ भी आ जाए। So what are the types of resources? So let us talk about the types of resources on the basis of origin, right? Okay, so first one is the biotic resource। So what are biotic resource? As the term suggests, these are the resources that are obtained from the biosphere. Okay, biosphere is what? Biosphere is a sphere where human beings exist, right? So these are the resources obtained from biosphere और इनमें लाइफ होती है जैसे कि तुम जो प्लांट्स खाते हो वेजिटेबल्स जो भी हमें ऑब्टेन होती हैं प्लांट्स एनिमल्स लाइफ स्टॉक एक्सेट्रा फिश राइट सो दीज आर बायोटिक रिसोर्स जिनमें जान है वो बायोटिक रिसोर्स है राइट अनदर थिंग इज एबायोटिक रिसोर्स ना एबायोटिक रिसोर्स क्या है वो रिसोर्सेज जिनमें जान नहीं है बट वो हमारे किसी ना किसी तरह से काम आते हैं जैसे मेटल हो गया राइट मेटल में अब जान नहीं है मेटल ग्रो नहीं करता सिमिलरली रॉक्स में भी जान नहीं है रॉक्स ग्रो नहीं करते बट दे आर useful to us in different ways so they have been termed as abiotic resource right so their origin is what their origin is abiotic and plants and animals ka origin is biotic okay so I hope this is clear let's understand it through one more example so here it is. Okay. So you can see bacteria, fungi, plants, algae, animals, and different protozoas, etc. They are in the biotic category. And similarly, if I take the example of abiotic factors, so they are air, then soil, temperature, light, water, etc. I mean जिसमें कि जान नहीं होती जो breathe in, breathe out नहीं करते हैं. जो technically non-living things हैं, they all are classified under abiotic resource. So I hope this is clear to everyone. Now moving ahead to the second type. Second type is on the basis of the exhaustibility. Exhaustibility क्या होती है? Simple meaning कि जो exhaust हो जाए, right? जैसे तुम्हारे फोन की बैटरी, तो वो भी exhaust हो जाती है. In the morning when you charge it, it is full, and by evening it turns out to be emptied, right? पूरा red हो जाता है. So let's understand the resources on the basis of exhaustibility. So first type is renewable resource. Renewable means जो बार बार renew होता रहे उसको renewable resource बोलते हैं simple terms में. So these resources are reproduced by physical, chemical or mechanical processes and they are known as replenishable resource or renewable resource. For example, जैसे soil है, soil is also a renewable resource, but it takes a lot of years to generate the soil. Okay, so that is why it is precious. So but the other resources like wind energy renewable resource, solar energy renewable resource, tidal energy once again a renewable resource जो फटाफट renew हो जाते हैं right तो soil तो वो बहुत साल लगाती है बनने में but these wind solar energy etc they get replenished in very short span of time as we know. तो एग्जाम्पल्स देख लेते हैं थोड़े बहुत रीन्यूएबल रिसोर्सेज के वो चीज़ें जो बार बार आपको मिलती रहती हैं टाइम टू टाइम so renewable resources so you can see solar energy का example है then wind energy similarly biogas also because it is made of animal waste and similarly tidal energy also because waves तो sea में automatically generate होती रहती हैं और एक और example है रिन्यूएबल रिसोर्स का नॉट एप्लीकेबल टू बॉयज मे बी हो भी सकता है नहीं भी हो सकता है सो नॉट एप्लीकेबल टू बॉयज दिस इज ऑल्सो रिन्यूएबल रिसोर्स आई होप चलो लेट्स नॉट टॉक अबाउट इट सो व्हाट आर रिन्यूएबल रिसोर्स तो रिन्यूएबल रिसोर्स नाउ रिन्यूएबल रिसोर्स कौन सा होगा जो रिसोर्स वक्त के साथ रिन्यू नहीं होगा और एक बार यूज करने में खत्म हो जाएगा जो बहुत सालों बाद रिन्यू होगा दैट वुड बी नॉन रिन्यूएबल रिसोर्स so this resources occur over a very long geological period of time millions of years लगते हैं बनने में so हम यही assume करते हैं कि एक बार यूज कर लिया तो एग्जॉस्ट हो गया राइट and minerals and fossil fuels are example of it these resources take millions of years in their formation right जैसे soil का बताया था तो that would be in the non renewable category so some of the resources like metals are recyclable and some like fossil fuels cannot be recycled and get exhausted with their use so they are generally classified under non-renewable resources, right? So अगर कोई मेरे से non-renewable का example पूछेगा तो I'll give example of fossil fuels like petroleum, etc., coal, ठीक ये सब. So I hope this is clear. So now, moving on to the next type of classification of resources that is on the basis of ownership. Let's understand it. बहुत easy है. तो पहला individual resources, right? So these are owned by the private individuals. Apart from that, कुछ और करेक्टरिस्टिक देख लेते हैं. सो एग्जाम्पल दे सकते हो, लैंड ओन्ड बाय फार्मर्स. फॉर एग्जाम्पल द लैंड्स विच यू ओन, आई मीन द हाउसेज विच यू ओन इन द अर्बन एरियाज, हाउसेज एंड प्लॉट्स, दे विल ऑल्सो फॉल अंडर इंडिविजुअल रिसोर्स कैटेगरी. ठीक है, जिसकी ओनरशिप आपके पास है, दैट इज called as individual resource. However, we also pay some taxes to the government for holding this property. Okay, so that is there, but ultimately resource is yours, it belong to you. So individual resources, if we are classifying resources on the basis of ownership, so first one is individual resources. Then we move on to the next one, that is community owned resources. Okay, community owned resources का मतलब क्या होता है, जो कि owned by a community and accessible to each and every one of us. Okay, जैसे एक grazing grounds है, you can go to them but do not graze over there. Okay, and these cemeteries, burials, and cremation grounds. So these are community owned resources, and nobody has right. I mean, each and every one of us has a little right over it. So I hope this is clear. Now moving on to the national resources. Okay, so what are national resources? So technically, all the things which are present in the country is called as a national resource, right? But if you have been to that यमुना एक्सप्रेस वे, you must have seen के आसपास उसमें खेत बने हुए हैं एंड बीच में इस तरह की एक रोड है, राइट? तब हुआ क्या कि जब ये यमुना एक्सप्रेस वे बनना था, तो गवर्नमेंट ने बहुत सारे फार्मर्स की जो आसपास की जमीन थी इसको परचेज किया और बीच में से काट करके यहाँ एक हाईवे क्रिएट कर दिया, राइट? सो इवन इफ द लैंड बिलोंग टू यू एंड गवर्नमेंट वांट टू यूज दैट लैंड फॉर अ पर्टिकुलर पर्पस, सो गवर्नमेंट कैन डू इट, बट बाय पेइंग यू सम काइंड ऑफ कंपनसेशन. सपोज अगर आपका लैंड ले रही है गवर्नमेंट वहां पर कुछ और बनाने के लिए, तो गवर्नमेंट विल डेफिनेटली पे यू समथिंग. ओके, so that is there. So यही था इसमें कि what are national resources. So everything which is present on the country, that in the country, that is a national resource. Apart from that, for oceans we have a different criteria. For example, अगर हमने श्रीलंका तक पुल बनाया है अपने यहाँ से, राम सेतु, which these वानर सेना is making, so यहाँ पर सिर्फ 22 किलोमीटर तक का जो एरिया है, मतलब सी के आगे से 22 किलोमीटर तक का जो एरिया है, दैट इज अंडर आवर कंट्रोल. उसके बियॉन्ड जो एरिया है, दैट इज नॉट अंडर आवर कंट्रोल, दैट इज इंटरनेशनल बाउंड्री. ओके, सो आई होप दिस इज क्लियर टू यू. सो इसमें यही था बताने लायक, ज्यादा कुछ था नहीं. लाइक व्हाट आर द नेशनल रिसोर्सेज, ऑल्दो इंडिविजुअल रिसोर्सेज भी होते हैं, बट इफ गवर्नमेंट नीड your individual resource for the development of country, they'll pay you the compensation and they can acquire. Okay, so let's talk about international resources now. International resources, so international resources are those resources which are not owned by anyone. For example, you can see some examples on your screen. Example से समझ लो, easy हो जाएगा. So these are open waters. Take जैसे Pacific Ocean is say 40,000 kilometers long, right, or stretchable. तो वहां पर it is not owned by anyone. There is an empty space which is not owned by anyone. Similarly, in Arctic region also, it is not a country. So similarly, it is not owned by any country, but each and every country has set up some kind of research center over there. Then the space also. Space पे भी किसी का हक नहीं है. So space हमारा नहीं है. I mean space सबका है. Until and unless उसको एलॉन मस्क ऐलान कर दे कि मैं खरीदने वाला हूँ. So space. Then out of these, everything is an international resource. Don't call Kim Kardashian as the international resource. She is not. Okay. Chalo. So international resource, I hope it is clear to each and every one of you. So oceanic borders which are beyond 200 nautical miles, they fall under a category called as exclusive economic zone. तो ये पेपर में आ सकता है, like what is an exclusive economic zone? So oceanic resources beyond 200 nautical miles are referred to as exclusive economic zone. That is open ocean and no country has right over that area. I mean, all the countries cooperate in that area and work together. So last criteria of specifying the resource, that is on the basis of the status of the development. Okay, so let's understand. So what are potential resources? Have you ever went to the PTM and your teacher has told you that दिमाग तो बहुत है बट पढ़ता नहीं है, right? So that means you are a potential resource की potential तो है but you are not utilizing yourself okay and then you say कि सर आपने इतना बोल दिया बस छाती चौड़ा हो गया हमारा. So resources which are found in region but not have been utilized they are referred to as potential resource. जो resources हैं तो सही but अभी तक यूटिलाइज नहीं हुए हैं. जैसे गुजरात और राजस्थान के बहुत सारे एरिया ऐसे हैं जहाँ पर सोलर एनर्जी और विंड एनर्जी को यूटिलाइज किया जा सकता है टू जनरेट द पावर but so far it has not been utilized. Okay, so this is the example of potential resource. Now moving on to the developed resource. What is developed resource? Developed resource is a resource which is surveyed and its quality and quantity have been determined for utilization. मतलब एक resource है जो कि हमें पता है कि कितनी quantity में हमें available है, क्या उसकी quality है और हम उसको use भी कर सकते हैं. So that would be categorized as developed resource. जैसे अगर मैं 5G की बात करूं तो आज के डेट में 5G is a developed resource, right? Similarly, if I talk about hydroelectric projects in India, so that is also a developed resource which I have. The development of resources depend on technology and level of their feasibility. ये तो हमें पता ही है, तो common fact है, right? So developed resources, what? Developed resources like शर्मा जी का बेटा, those who top the class, right? Now moving on to the third category. The third category is that of stock. Now what is a stock? So these are the materials which are there in the environment and they have potential to satisfy human needs also, but they have not been put to use or we do not have appropriate technology to access them. जैसे कि hydrogen है, right? Hydrogen or water, we know that water is a compound of two gases, hydrogen and oxygen, right? But hydrogen can be used as a rich source of energy, but we do not have advanced technical know-how. But recently, एक hydrogen car भी launch हुई है, right? So just go and search about it, comment below अगर कुछ मिलता है तो and do let me know also. ठीक है, so इसको बोलेंगे हम स्टॉक, जिसको एक्सेस करने की टेक्नोलॉजी हमारे पास नहीं है उसको हम स्टॉक बोल देंगे. सिमिलरली स्टॉक का एक भाई है जिसका नाम है रिजर्व, राइट? सो रिजर्व इज अ सबसेट ऑफ स्टॉक which can be put to use with the help of existing technical know-how but their use has not been started yet. For example, हमें इनको use करना आता है but हमने इनको use नहीं किया है just because we want to save them, right? So you can understand it from this image. So developed resource which are being used and reserves which are going to be used in future. They are technically the backup. Okay. So through this image you can understand, I hope. Now moving on to uh, the other thing, that these reserves are basically used for meeting the future requirements, right? For example, river water can be used for generating hydroelectric power, but presently its use is very limited. But later on हम उसको extend कर सकते हैं. Okay. Last topic, that is development of resources. I mean part one का last topic है ये, development of resources. So इसमें problems due to overuse of resources is very important. We have seen that depletion of resources is being caused because of greed of individuals. हमारे में भी बहुत greed है. We always over utilize our resources. Another thing is जिनके पास ज़्यादा पैसे होते हैं, they acquire most of the resources and there emerges a situation जहाँ पे haves और have nots सोसाइटी में आ जाते हैं, राइट? और हैव्स और हैव नॉट्स के बारे में हमने एक बार बात भी करी थी इन द रशियन रेवोल्यूशन वाला चैप्टर में भी, व्हेन आई वाज टीचिंग टू माय किड्स. आई मीन ओके, इफ यू आर नॉट, इफ आई हैव नॉट टॉट यू, so आपको नहीं पता होगा, और इफ यू नो दिस गुड, अदरवाइज आई विल टेल यू व्हाट इज हैव्स एंड हैव नॉट्स. Another thing is that indiscriminate exploitation of resources has led to global ecological crisis as well, like global warming, we know, ozone layer depletion, that we also know. And you know what? India's richest 1% hold over 40% of nation wealth. So the first 2 points, these are related to this. Okay, and this image very popular as we know. बेचारा जा नहीं पा रहा है polar bear. So in this scenario, what is our need? The need is that we should utilize our resources judiciously. Otherwise, God will send us this message कि तुमने अपना 90% या 100% utilize कर लिया है और अब बैठे रहो, right? So let's not get into that situation. So what do we need? We need sustainable development. Okay, need of dash development, need of sustainable development. So we are going to start the next video with the topic need of sustainable development. So thanks for watching the video. If you have watched the full video, do like it, share it, and you can ask your doubts. And if you feel like subscribing, do it. I would request you to subscribe the channel also. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll improve the video also so that I can show you my face on the video itself and we can interact more. Thank you so much for watching the video. Do subscribe to the channel.